Today, because my dumbass actually bought 2 copies of this book, we're going to be reviewing Violet Made of Thorns. I try not to put my background in the photo so it's not distracting, but if you can see it, I have a print here too from it. And actually, after reading this book, I pinned it up on the wall because I ended up liking it a lot more than I think I would have, especially being YA. I don't know if I would call it YA because there's like 4 or 5 explicit sex scenes in this book. There's been this pattern lately where I'm almost done reading YA books because I keep getting kind of let down. Like I read the summary and the book ends up sounding great, but then I actually read the book and it's almost like clickbait. I mean, there's a little bit of the summary and then the rest is like character drama just for the sake of YA high school drama stuff, okay? But I cringed a little bit when I started reading and it's not first person, but it is the point of view of another little YA female, Violet, okay? But this time I was genuinely surprised by some of the choices she made, and we have insight to her thoughts. Everyone seems to call this morally gray, but I don't think that's quite right. Morally gray is somebody like who's still meant to be a hero. They kind of know right and wrong, but they think about it, and they end up making the tough choice for either the greater good that gets misunderstood or, you know, for a higher purpose. Violet, on the other hand, is just selfish. I don't really know how else to describe it. She does what she wants, and she gets called out multiple times for being a coward, a liar. I mean, she's basically a supervillain. And it's fun. I mean, it's fun to read these kind of characters. You know, not the same old, boring, hero cut out, good guy stuff. I know, I say this a lot, but a lot of problem with YA is people want their characters to look good. They want a role model, and they want a hero, but they want to keep it fantasy. I get that. But sometimes you just want a story, okay? And sometimes bad characters make good stories. Bad choices means drama for characters, but good entertainment for us. I mean, a lot of authors are scared to do that because they care so much about their characters. And that's great, that's good. Because people can keep on caring about their characters, and that's the kind of people who get all offended when they read fan fiction and they disagree with, you know, any kind of bad, you know, our character would never do that, our character is so precious and whatever. No, I mean, I like these kind of stories better. They're relatable. Sometimes people are selfish, and sometimes what I don't like is how they kind of try to justify it. They don't go over it a lot, so it's not really an annoying thing, but it kind of irks me when they try to blame how somebody is on their background or how they're growing up. I mean, yeah, it's proven that has to do a lot with stuff, but I watch a lot of true crime and whatnot. And it kind of irks me when, like, the first thing they get into is how they were brought up. They say, oh, this parent was working too much, or this one went through a divorce, so that's why they're a serial killer. It just doesn't make sense to me because it hardly these days, I don't know if it's just me, but you never see families that are 100% families. Everybody has grown up hard, and everybody has trouble with their parents at some point. One problem or a different one. It doesn't make them, it does not automatically mean that you're going to grow up and be a loser or a bully so it just kind of irks me, you know, because my parents went through a divorce and I'm not a supervillain that you know of. Like they mention it that's how she's different from the others. Everyone around her has grown up in the palace, so they're seen as spoiled and entitled, and sometimes they use that against her when they're, you know, they run out of insults or whatever. But for me, it doesn't really make sense because, I mean, her mother worked hard when she was a kid, you know, and she saw that, and she saw that it's important to be ambitious, yeah. But she herself, I don't want to say has done a lot of clawing and digging, as they put it, to get to where she's at. I'm going to have to warn you now, there are some spoilers I'm going to go through in this book because I have to. It's the only way I can actually discuss the book is if I go through detail by detail. And I can't be vague when I'm trying to talk about details, okay? So I'm sorry if you haven't read it, but a lot of it, I don't think it's that important to actually spoil you. But the main, how she even gets to where she's at now starts when she was a kid. She ends up using her powers and saving the prince from being killed one day on accident. So pretty much they're forever indebted to her, and she doesn't let them forget it. You know, she knows that in the hard times they can't really get rid of her because she saved his life. And I mean, yeah, if it was just that, that's fine. But she also tried to say that she deserves to be where she's at because she worked hard to get there and whatnot. But it's like, did she really? All she did was save his life with powers that she was also born with. Not everyone is born with those powers, so that makes her special in her own way. She's not a normal person who worked hard to get there. She's a special person who just happened to be at the right place at the right time. And it doesn't feel very genuine to me because she was still born into being a seer. Just like he was born into being a prince. And she wants to hate on him for trying to follow his role for what he was born into. And she's doing the same exact thing. So it's a little bit hypocritical. And it doesn't really hold up to me while she's sleeping in a tower of her own, a palace since she was little bitty. She hasn't been on the roads that long, the streets that long. She has fairy magic and glamour to just whatever they want, whenever they want. She has food brought to her on a whim. She didn't have to leave her room for nothing if she don't want to. She has robes that change colors to match the sky. And she gets paid for just lying to people. And she don't even... Okay, don't get me wrong. I don't dislike the character at all. I know that's what it sounds like, and I'm being overly harsh. I just don't like when they try to root somebody out by saying, oh, this one deserves to be taken care of because she had a hard time. I feel like everyone else's problems shouldn't be undermined by somebody else's problem. Just because she had a hard time doesn't mean that they can forget everybody else's hard times that they had to growing up. She wants to say she's the only one that had hard times growing up. Oh, Cyrus, he's just a prick. He's entitled. He's a jerk. You don't know what he went through growing up. You don't know the pressure and the stress of growing up in royalty. I mean, I just feel like people need to be a bit more empathetic and not try to one-up somebody else on their situation. There's always dignity in doing the best you can in the situation you were born into. They don't really mince words in this book, and I like that. You know, they try to be honest with each other as possible. And I much prefer somebody to be honest with me than to be, I don't know, not scared, but just, you can't trust somebody who can't tell you the truth. I don't know. It's like, if you have these friends and they know your fly has been unzipped all day, and then you walk around and people laugh at you behind your back, and your friend could have told you something, but you know what I mean? You know what I mean? She's a little jaded, okay? And I love the honesty of it. She doesn't change her ways because some guy, randomly says, I love you. She doesn't go like the rest of the YA and just obsess with it throughout the book. She tries to read people and understand if they're being genuine or not. Especially when we have this setting of royalty and the court. It's hard. It's hard to see what people, because most people, especially there's so much. She works with these peasants every day who they just come up and all they're obsessed with marrying the prince. They don't love him. Some of them want to be taken into better lives. Some of them hope for fairy tales. Some of them love his appearance and don't know his personality. And she can see this, and she knows that everyone sort of lives in this fantasy world where they don't really know the truth, but they cling on to hope, should I say. That one day their situation can just get better. But honestly, I don't know why he likes her at all. I don't know. I wouldn't really call that a spoiler. There's romance in this book. There's a prince and there's a seer. And there's a prince and a seer. But I agree with him, a lot of the stuff he says. You don't really feel defensive for Violet because you could read her thoughts and she's not as good as a person as... she can't even pretend to be a good person because we know what she's thinking. And he tells her several times, you just tell yourself that you need to be this way so you don't feel guilty about what you're doing to people. And that makes a lot of sense. That's what I went back to on before about the growing up on the the hard times thing. She says, oh, well, I've learned to be this way since I was a little kid. You know, that's what he says. It's just being an excuse. You're not a little kid anymore. You're 30-something, right? Is that how old she is? I don't know. 18, 19, something like that. Probably. It's YA, so we're going to say like 18. But by that point, you should grow into your own person and know what's right and wrong when you're interacting with people. What you can and can't do in a social way. Sometimes you have to put on the customer service face. And the prince is really good at understanding that. And she gets mad at him for that. Like, jealous almost. Yeah, we all think mean and bad things on accident sometimes. At least she doesn't act on them. But it's not like because she feels bad about it. No, she doesn't think, oh, well, I shouldn't be thinking that. Like most of us probably do. There's no remorse. It's just that she realizes that if she were to do those things, the result wouldn't be in her favor. Or it would be too unpredictable for someone like her who really just relishes control. So I think the story is really incredibly entertaining, especially for somebody who likes darker characters in general. That's not to say she's evil or anything like that. And I wouldn't really call it grimdark because we're still in a fairy tale setting. There's a lot of references to different fairy tales. Actually, I had fun because I was thinking of Disney movies. Every time something would come up, you see somebody hand them a red apple. You think, oh, that's Snow White. They'd walk through a garden. You think, oh, it's Hercules. They're running out from a ball thing at midnight. You think, oh, Cinderella. So there is some fun in knowing that we're still in this fairy tale world where there's magic and dragons and fairies and whatnot. It just doesn't feel off to have a character like that in the middle of it, especially as a seer, because it's famously known that, advisors, wizards, seers, and all that, they're known for being a little quirky. They're always isolated. They're always in a tower. They're always mysterious. It almost seems like they don't really have a grasp on how to be social. Think of Gandalf and what's his name from The Witcher and Moraine. They're all, it's a typical wizard trope. And not to say she's a wizard, but she is a seer, so it's the closest thing we have to it. There's a sideline quest thing of like fairy magic, and that whole background I was talking about is just kind of thrown in here and there. Like, it almost seems like it's necessary to world build, but that's not what we want to focus on. The focus is on the characters. And Violet, and her lies, her constant lying, and her consequences, and fate. There's a big theme of fate in here about if you didn't choose your path, and then another path, the option to take one path, and then doing what you're supposed to do versus what you feel like you should do. There's a big conflict here. Yeah, there's a moral concept involved, like how we're supposed to navigate through the situation and our positions in life. And the constant tug of trying so hard not to do the bad thing, even though it's so tempting. She does have the special power of being able to read people's threads. Their possibilities, should we say. Not really the future, but almost kind of like tarot. It gives you an insight to the person. And, you can advise them. But for me, I've never been a fan of what ifs. Because I feel like only what did happen is what matters. And strangely, even though she's a seer, 99% of her readings are lies. She's so used to controlling the information to get what she needs and wants that the truth doesn't even matter half of the time. Actually, most of the time. She's the only one who usually knows the truth. But she tries to make things happen in order to get the result of what she sees. She just tells people what they want to hear or what she thinks they need to hear. And the prince just called her out on this. Stop telling me what you think I want to hear and just tell me the truth. So it's a little annoying about how arrogant that she can be, that she thinks she can be the judge of whether or not to tell people the truth. But then again, she is the one with the power. So if she has that power, I guess she has that ability to be the judge. I don't know, but it's just my opinion. If you have the power of life and death, if you have that power, you're the only one who has that power, then you have to use it because it's given to you for a reason. But to use it, you have to be a judge. You know what I mean? Also, this book is so quotable. Like, I want to highlight every other line because of just how flowy and how it hits me, the words that are said. How true to heart they could be. It's refreshing as something that actually, that comes with YA. You're not used to seeing things like this. You're used to seeing kind of the cringe-like sentences, like, Twilight. And it helps that a lot of, how do I put this? A lot of female characters have this meek-like voice that they sound like a girl when you're reading their perspective. And it gets kind of annoying, like kind of meek-like. But she doesn't have that voice. Like when you're listening to her talk or whatever, it sounds powerful and it sounds strong. It's a strong villain voice and it's lovely. And I can't stand this thing, like when characters do this fake bad stuff. Kind of like edginess, where they're trying to go around and tell everybody to prove how bad they are, just so something happens that makes them look good, and people can realize, oh, you're not as bad as you think you are. It's like the author tries to brag about how bad their character is by being edgy, but they're not really bad characters. They're just, I don't know, it's really weird to me, and it feels disingenuine, okay? But in this one, she actually does the things that, prove that she can be bad. And it's fun to watch. I'm not hating on her. I'm making it sound like it's meant to be a villain origin story or anything like that, because it's not. It's just that she knows her place very well, and she's a fighter. And she's the kind of person who doesn't like it when people try to get one over on her or try to, be smarter than her. She has to be the smartest person in the room at all times. We all know people like that. Sometimes it's best just to let her... I'm a fan of Dante. Let's just put it that way. She doesn't like to give in to suggestions or to do what people tell her to do. And she'll often do the opposite just out of spite. And I feel like that complicates a lot of things in this plot. If she could have just teamed up and taken care of the issue, it wouldn't have got out of hand. But her pride got in the way. It's hard for her to trust him, and I understand that. Because I'm also wary of someone who wears masks 24/7, and he's got this persona that's always toned for show, because that's how he was brought up. And she gets mad at him for that, for doing the same exact thing that she does. And that's another huge dilemma, having to choose loyalty between people who have power and try not to insult the other person who has power. You have to find the best way to either please both of them or deal with the consequence when you can't. And her big thing is that she works for the king. And he knows that she has power, but he pretty much tells her himself that her power is telling people what they... is telling people. Not the truth. He uses her to control the information, okay? She basically does what he tells her to. If she sees an earthquake coming, she tells the king, and the king tells her, okay, tell the people that they all need to plant this kind of crop, or, give them a possible task or something, to make it seem like they didn't listen and that's their consequence. I don't know. It's super weird. But her power is almost never really needed. They could literally put anybody else into the same room as her, call them a seer, and then just pretend that her information is valid. Because you're going to do what they tell her to say no matter what. So sometimes I feel like she isn't even needed there. The only thing that holds her there is the fact that she saved the prince's life. Also the attraction, which people who are looking for a lot of drama and romance, well, especially like this book. Because for a YA book, they try to get it on and do it at least 4 times, I want to say. But let's make it clear, it's not a very healthy relationship. It's hidden and stormy, and it's the epitome of a love-hate relationship. There's literal hate. There's no enemies to lovers here. It's just straight up love-hate, okay? But it's very spicy. I will give you that. It's like people who like to argue with their partner for some reason, for fun, and then make up afterwards. But then there's the whole, oh, we can't be together. Oh, no, it's a secret. Oh, you're Prince. I'm not. You're getting married. You have a duty. I hate you. Stuff like that, okay? But it's fun. It's fun. And yes, I didn't mention it because it's such a staple in YA, but we have the normal sidekick-like characters. We have a lesbian princess who's more interested in living life for fun than actually taking the throne, and I love her, okay? She's awesome. I'd want to hang out with her more than these other ones. And we also have the gay, or bi, is he bi? I don't know, the friend who's always pretty super sus. Dante, I'm looking at you. And yeah, the magic stuff in the background kind of felt like it was interrupting sometimes, but I know we had to have a story, that actually lead the plot somewhere. There seems to be needless, fantastical elements, but it was still enjoyable. I just think there's too much lore to try and fit into one book. For example, we have seers, the other seers, fairies, background history, war stuff, politics, witches, curses, just a general environment in general, like cities and towns, blood stuff. I don't know, the book's just not big enough for all that when we're just trying to fit in the middle of a character's internal dilemma mixed with the plot in the inner circle. So I felt like the ending was a little bit rushed, the whole confrontation, and I was a little bit disappointed because when things actually got down, pushed to shove, I was surprised that she did something I didn't think that would happen. But then they kind of took it away and fixed it. I guess you'd call it character development. And it's not a bad thing. Okay, I just thought it would be a little bit more spicier if there was a lot more drama. But it's fine. I mean, the book is fun. Actually, I don't even want to... Because actually, when I'm done with books, I'll turn around and I'll either give them away or resell them or something like that. Because I need more room on my bookshelf. But this, I want to keep this one just because of how I enjoyed it. And I think I'll read the sequel if there's going to be one. So, what, am I too harsh on Violet? Or... Because she's literally asking for it. But... Yeah, there's going to be a sequel because we have to know what happens with Dante and all of that. So that's it. I mean, you can tell I enjoyed the book, right? I hope so. Hope you enjoy this, and I hope I didn't waste your time. Because I know time is valuable. I'll see you later if I can keep up these reviews.